Let us open also book of Jeremiah, chapter 24. Chapter 24. Verses 1. Verses 1 through 7. Verses 1 through 7. After a little while, the Lord God showed Jeremiah the prophet 2 baskets of figs. One basket is full of good figs, and the other basket was full of bad figs. Even could not eat those. And then the Lord says in verse 5. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so will I acknowledge those who are carried away captive from Judah, whom I have sent out of this place for their own good into the land of the Chaldeans. So the Lord showed Jeremiah 2 baskets, and one basket was good figs. And then these good figs are the ones who are carried away to Babylon. Those who surrender themselves to the hands of Chaldeans. And then whoever obeyed, whoever observed the words of the Lord and heeded His commandment. And then in the other hand, bad figs. This is the people who say, "Oh, God would come and save us," and then remained in Jerusalem. So whoever disobey the words of God shall be like bad figs, even to the night. We should be useful to the Lord. We should be good fruits of for the Lord. Good has a good aroma and tasty. Useful to those who cultivate the ground. But even fruits, bad enough, people could not eat it. That's a terrible thing. And then I hope some of us remind themselves the passage of the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus filled the stomach of multitude of people, 5,000 people. And then when Jesus fed 4,000 people with 7 loaves of bread, when Jesus fed 5,000 people, disciples gathered all the fragments left over together, and then 12 baskets full of leftovers. And then when Jesus fed 7,000 people, disciples gathered 7 baskets full of fragments. These are not coincidences, but there's a great lesson we must learn. God's words of God is spread even ends of the earth, and everybody hearing the words of the Lord. Whoever heard the commandments and then the words of the Lord, the gospel, words of gospel. Many people being hearing the words of the Lord, but only few, only remnant shall be saved. Apostle Paul, who knew the scripture so well, he was saying also the same thing. Descendants of Abraham shall be stars of the sky and the sands of the ocean, but only the remnant shall be saved. Which means enter into good basket. The 12 baskets signify 12 tribes of Israel, and also 7 baskets is 7 churches written in the Bible. And only the remnant, only those who enter into the basket, of good basket, shall be saved. So what causes those to enter into the good basket? These are the ones who heeded words of the Lord. Exodus 19. Exodus 19. Verses 3 to 6. 3 to 6. The Lord God once again commanded Moses to speak these things. What things? God wanted Moses to speak to them. Verse 3. verse 4. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. I already a couple of times, I explained these things, but it is not tedious, but it is safe for everyone to hear this, to make sure everyone understands. When eagles, they tend to make nests, on a cliff or on wherever, very high place, and then they are young ones, youth, big enough to take a fast fly. They encourage them to leave the nest, leave their nest. But sometimes young ones can fly by themselves, but sometimes they are still too young to fly. So sometimes they fall from the cliff, and then their parents eagle come swiftly, and then bear the young ones on their wings, and then bring them back to the nest. So this is what God does. On the eagle's wings, bear his children, and bring them to God Himself. This is what Israelites saw in the land of Egypt. And then I have a good testimony. I just remember this testimony. One of my fellow ministers, he already passed away. He was way older than I am. He was a late 70s. He was maybe mid 70s or something. And then when he started out his ministry in Ibaraki Prefecture, first believer the Lord Jesus sent to this minister, pastor, a very elder pastor, was a high school young girl, and then she was the only one church member, church congregation. The minister speaking in Saturday or Sunday, just one person is sitting right there. And whatever minister preached, she just feels like minister was speaking to her. So that was kind of awkward, awkward to this young girl. And she sometimes decided, oh, I'm not going to church today. But when Saturday comes, Sunday comes, maybe Sunday and Sunday comes, she. Even though, a night before she decided not to go to church, tomorrow. But when the morning comes, she woke up, changed, put on her clothes, and, brush her teeth, and, eating breakfast, and, just leave her place, early, so she can make it in church. So it was not her own will or desire, but God Himself bore her on the wings, the wings of the eagles, and then brought her to Himself. So this is what God does. So therefore you saw this, and then verse 5. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my commandments, then you shall be special treasure to me above all people. For all the earth is mine. Jesus said, if we observe His commandment, heed His word, you shall be special treasure to me, Lord said, above all people. It says above all people. Relation between God, us, God and His people, various relationships, described, likened in this manner. Like master, and then also servant, or friend, and then also father and sons and daughters, and then wives and husbands. Various ways, various relationships, likened the relationship between God and His people. But this passage says, "You shall be special treasure to me above all people." I like to open a few passages concerning this relationship between God and us. Let us open the Gospel of John, chapter 13. Gospel of John chapter 13 is the foot washing ceremony Jesus introduced to his disciples. Before his suffering, Jesus took up and stood up and then took a basin and towel guarded around his waist, and then began to wash his disciples' feet. The washing somebody's feet was absolutely servant's job, not the master's. And then Jesus came to Simon Peter. Peter refused Jesus to wash his feet. And then Jesus said, unless Jesus washes his feet, he had nothing to do with him. So Peter surprised. He was astonished hearing this. So he said to Jesus, not only my feet, my head, my body. And then Jesus said, whoever bathed, whoever baptized, they have no need of washing except feet. 12 through 17. The most fundamental core of his teaching, Jesus' teaching is it is more blessed to give than to receive. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Also, it is more blessed to serve somebody, to help somebody, than to being helped, to be served. Jesus was, master indeed, or rabbi, teacher, but he himself washed disciples' feet. So remember this and do likewise. Not to be served, but to serve. This is a great blessing, greater blessing, Jesus says. So once again, Jesus was, telling disciples, apostles, that they were servants. Let us open chapter 15, John, Gospel of John, chapter 15. We are going to read the verses 12 through 20. 12 through 20. Jesus just showed a good example. Not, it is more blessed to serve than to be served. And then the servants didn't have to understand what masters well. I graduated almost 25 years ago in a seminary in Tokyo. I was so busy, early in the morning, like 4 5 o'clock in the morning to midnight. I was so busy, serving and ministering to the church members in the Tokyo church. I was so exceedingly busy. I did not have. I could not even afford myself to read the Bible. So what was it I was doing in the seminary? Except I couldn't afford time to read the Bible. I was being trained spiritually to be obedient to the words of the Lord. For instance, earlier this morning we read the book of Jeremiah. God commanded Israelites to surrender to Babylonians. They could not understand it, so they could not obey. So words of God sometimes are harder to perceive, harder to understand. That doesn't mean we don't have to obey it. What I was told in the seminary was, if somebody tell you to dig a hole, so just do it. And then if we tell our kids or maybe somebody, dig a hole. I am so sure 100% they will answer you. Why? I'm sure they will ask you why I have to dig a hole. Are you going to plant something, or are you going to dispose garbage, or what was it? They would ask. But we were told, do not ask. You don't have to ask, just do it. This is a form of a servant. Servants don't have to understand why their master doing it. But now Jesus, in this manner, he said he no longer would call his apostles servant, but friend.